Welcome to Deep Dive. Today, we're going to sidestep, for a moment, the usual debates about knowledge and truth. Or maybe it's better to say we're coming at them from a totally different angle. We're going to make epistemology personal. We're diving into an area that philosophy has, for the most part, just kind of left on the sidelines. It's always been about objective facts, propositions, data.
The clean stuff.
The clean stuff, exactly. So our mission today is to really get our heads around the deep structural difference between knowing a fact, knowing that something is true, and knowing a person, knowing who they are.
Which is why we're calling this deep dive epistemology personalized. Because when you look at the history of philosophy, it's almost all been about what we call propositional knowledge. P-knowledge for short.
Right, the classic justified true belief stuff we all learn about.
Exactly. It's the knowledge you find in textbooks. It's a state of mind where you know that a certain statement is true. Knowing that the capital of France is Paris. That's a classic. It's about mind-independent truths. Facts that are true whether you or I know them or not.
It's objective. And philosophers love that,
Okay.
right? Because you can test it, you can verify it, you can detach it from all the messy subjectivity of human life.
Precisely. P-knowledge is defined as a subject's attitude, your belief, acceptance, toward a true proposition. The person doing the knowing can change, but the truth of the proposition, that stays fixed.
Okay, but when we pivot to knowing a person, we're in much messier territory. We're moving toward what we're calling interpersonal knowledge, I-knowledge.
And here's the hook, the really radical claim we're going to explore. There's this long-standing idea in realism that knowing makes no difference to what is known.
Mm-hmm.
And that works for facts. My knowing the distance to the sun doesn't change that distance. But when the thing you're knowing is another conscious, living, interactive mind, that rule just breaks. Because the act of knowing them, personally, changes the equation. The knowledge itself is a relationship. It's reciprocal. It's intrinsically mind-dependent. I-knowledge isn't a state of one mind looking at a fact. It's a state of minds interacting. The person being known has to participate for the knowledge to even exist.
Wow. So if I know you and you know me, our relationship is the knowledge. It wouldn't exist if one of us checked out. It's a joint achievement, not something I can just do on my own.
That's it.
That immediately makes it a whole different ballgame from knowing that 2 + 2 = 4.
So to really nail down that I-knowledge can't be reduced to just a big pile of facts, we need to first, place it on the map.
Right, lay out the different paradigms.
Okay, we've mentioned it already, but let's be clear. First, we have propositional knowledge, P-knowledge. This is knowing that a proposition is true. Its whole deal is clarity, objectivity, mind-independent truth. It answers the question, what facts do I know about the world?
Simple enough. Then you've got this bigger, fuzzier category that philosophers talk about, objectual knowledge. This is more about first-hand familiarity with an object. So I can say I know Paris because I've walked its streets. Or I know microbiology because I've spent years studying it.
Exactly. And I-knowledge is a very special type of objectual knowledge.
Wow.
It's the subcategory where the object you're familiar with is actually another conscious person, another subject.
Okay, so interpersonal knowledge, I-knowledge, is when two people know each other personally. You said it's a second-person thing. What really makes it stand out from just knowing facts?
Well, there are a few key features that pop up immediately. First, it's gradable.
What do you mean by gradable?
P-knowledge is pretty much binary. You either know that proposition P or you don't. Sure, your certainty can vary, but the knowledge itself is kind of an on-off switch. I-knowledge is totally different. We can know someone a little, pretty well, or inside and out. It exists on a spectrum.
That makes sense. It reflects the depth of the relationship.
The second feature is context sensitivity. The bar for saying you know someone changes dramatically depending on the situation. The way you know a business partner you see once a month is completely different from how you know your best friend. The standards are just different.
And the third point, which I guess is the main point of this whole deep dive, is its irreducibility.
The big one. You could have a supercomputer feed you every single propositional fact about a person, their entire genome, every psychological report, a minute-by-minute biography, and you still couldn't claim that you know them personally.
That just resonates so deeply, doesn't it? We all feel that. There's this enormous gap between reading a 500-page biography of, say, Abraham Lincoln and actually sitting down and having a 5-minute chat with him.
And our job today is to show that that gap isn't just about, convenience or the amount of data. It's a genuine structural difference in what knowledge is in those two cases.
So we have to prove that S knows R, the personal version, and S knows that something is true, the factual version, aren't just two flavors of the same verb.
If we can do that, we show that the whole traditional picture of knowledge is, well, incomplete. It's missing a huge piece of our social reality.
Okay, so if we want to establish that structural separation, the first place to look is language. I mean, if this difference is as fundamental as you say, it should be baked into how we talk, right? Not just in English, but everywhere.
It absolutely should be, and it is. In English, the distinction is mainly grammatical. For propositional knowledge, we use the structure. S knows that varphi, where that little phi symbol, stands for a full sentence, a proposition.
Like, Susan knows that John is tall.
Exactly. Now try to just plug the person's name in there directly. Susan knows that, John. It's just...
It's not a sentence, it's gibberish.
It's ungrammatical. The structure itself tells you that the slot reserved for facts can't be filled by a person.
But the really convincing evidence, for me anyway, comes when you look beyond English.
Oh, absolutely. This is where it gets really compelling. Many, many language families use entirely different verbs for these two kinds of knowing. This isn't just a quirk of grammar. It's a deep cognitive distinction that cultures all over the world have found necessary to encode.
So give us some examples.
Well, the classic ones are in the Romance languages. In Spanish, you have saber for knowing facts or skills, and conoces for knowing people or places.
Right. Yo sé la capital versus yo conozco a María.
Perfect. Same thing in German, a totally different language family. You have wissen for facts and kennen for acquaintance.
And it doesn't stop with European languages.
Not at all. Go to a Semitic language like modern Hebrew. You get yada for facts and concepts and maker for recognizing or being acquainted with someone. Or go to the Sino-Tibetan family, to Chinese. You have zidao for knowing information and renchi for knowing a person.
Wow. So when you see that same distinction pop up in language families that are so incredibly diverse, Germanic, Romance, Semitic, Sino-Tibetan,
it tells you something. It strongly suggests that this isn't some arbitrary fluke. It's pointing to two distinct cognitive relations that are just hardwired into how humans navigate their social world.
Okay, so the linguistic split is pretty undeniable. Now let's get into the really philosophical stuff. The logical tests that are supposed to prove these two meanings of know are not the same thing. Where do we start?
We can start with something called the univocality and conjunction test. It sounds complicated, but the idea is simple. If two phrases use a word that means the same thing, if the word is univocal, you should be able to combine them smoothly using and.
Okay, an example would help.
Let's stick with P-knowledge. I can say, Jack knows that the Cubs won, and he knows that the Red Sox won.
Right, and you can just shorten that to Jack knows that the Cubs and Red Sox won. It works perfectly.
Exactly. The conjunction reduces nicely. But now let's try to mix P-knowledge and I-knowledge. Take the sentence. Hannah knows that penguins waddle, and Ted knows John. Now try to reduce it. Try to strip out the repeated verb, knows. You're left with, Hannah knows that penguins waddle, and Ted, John.
Ugh. Yeah, that's just broken. Your brain just hits a wall.
It completely breaks down the grammar, the semantics, everything. The verb knows simply refuses to govern both a proposition and a person at the same time in a conjunction. It's like trying to use the same tool for two completely different jobs.
That's a really strong piece of evidence and brings us to what you said was the most powerful test.
Yes, the substitution test. This one is, I think, the clincher. It reveals a really deep difference in how these two kinds of knowledge relate to the world.
So set this up for us.
First, we have to be careful. Sometimes when we say, I know John, what we really mean is what philosophers call knowledge who. It's a kind of P-knowledge used for identification. For example, I know who the new CEO is, but I don't know her personally.
Right. I know the fact that she is the CEO.
Exactly. We need a test that can cleanly separate true I knowledge from this knowledge who. And the substitution test does that by looking at what happens when we swap out names or descriptions that refer to the same person.
Okay.
Let's start with P-knowledge. With knowledge who, it is referentially opaque.
That sounds jargony. Break it down.
It just means the truth of the statement depends on the specific name or description you use. So let's say Lisa knows who Will is, but secretly Will is also Liam. Does Lisa necessarily know who Liam is?
No, not unless she knows the extra fact that Will is Liam.
Precisely. Her knowledge is trapped by the name, by the concept she's using. It's about the description, not the person directly. Now compare that to I knowledge. I knowledge is referentially transparent.
Meaning, It's not trapped by the name.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If Mark knows Sue personally, he knows Sue, and Sue happens to also be the department chair, then it is also true that Mark knows the department chair.
Even if he has no clue she's the chair. Even if he thinks she's the janitor.
Even if he has absolutely no idea that she holds that position. The truth is preserved.
Whoa, okay, that's a huge aha moment for me. So when Mark knows Sue personally, his knowledge is a direct line to the person, to the subject herself. It doesn't matter what you call her. It bypasses all the labels and descriptions.
That trap. Propositional knowledge, yes.
Yeah.
The object of I knowledge is the person, directly. The object of P knowledge is the proposition about the person. That simple logical difference is, I think, the final nail in the coffin for the idea that these are the same kind of knowledge. They're just structurally different.
Okay, so we've established that I knowledge is its own thing. Now let's look at how we get there. The sources lay out this really useful idea of 3 distinct grades of involvement with a person. It's like climbing a ladder from just knowing facts to actually having a personal connection.
It is. And the first rung on that ladder is the easiest to reach. Grade 1. Knowing by description. This is purely secondhand.
So this is all the stuff you learn without ever having any direct contact with the person.
Exactly. It's purely propositional knowledge. Facts about them. You read an article about a CEO, you hear gossip about a celebrity, you check someone's LinkedIn profile. It's all just data acquired through testimony from a third party.
The knowledge isn't coming from the person themselves. It's coming from somewhere else.
Right. It's not mediated by their own mind in any direct way. Now, moving up, we get to grade 2. Knowing by perception. This is a big step because it's now firsthand.
So this is where you are actually seeing them, hearing them, observing them in some way.
Yes. You're gaining knowledge through your own perceptual access. You see them give a talk, you hear them speak in a meeting, you watch them on a video call. There's a causal connection.
But, and this seems important, the causal arrow is only pointing one way. Information is flowing from them, the subject, to you, the knower. You're still basically an observer, an analyst.
That is the crucial point. And this is where we need a good test case to show that even grades 1 and 2 combined are not enough for I knowledge.
Let's use that Juan and Julia example.
Perfect. So Juan and Julia work at the same company for 10 years. They sit on the same weekly committee every week for a decade.
Okay, so they have tons of knowledge about each other.
Tons. Juan has vast grade 1 knowledge about Julia from reading all her reports and emails. He has vast grade 2 knowledge from a decade of watching her argue, present ideas, react to criticism. He knows her communication style, her political leanings on company issues, everything.
But if they've never actually spoken to each other directly, never had a coffee, never asked a personal question, never treated each other as a you.
The intuition is overwhelming, isn't it?
Yeah.
They do not know each other personally.
Not at all.
Juan cannot take his huge file of data on Julia and claim he knows it. He only knows about her. And that failure proves that even a massive amount of firsthand perceptual access over a very long time is not enough. It's just sophisticated surveillance.
So that brings us to the final necessary step.
Grade 3. Knowing as a subject. The two-way second personal level. This is where the magic happens.
This is the transformation from observation to engagement.
Right. The knower has to stop treating the other person as an it, to be observed, and start treating them as an I, treats a singular you. You have to move from the third-person descriptive stance, she is saying that, to the second-person direct stance, what are you saying?
So the causal route has to become a two-way street.
A two-way street, exactly. And the critical part of that exchange is that information is no longer just being observed by you, it's being actively given to you by the other person. And you, in turn, have to intend to be attentive to what they're giving you.
It's an exchange, this givenness and attentiveness.
That's the core of a grade 3 encounter. It's not about sharing a physical space, it's about sharing an intentional one. It's joint attention, using language of address. And that is what lays the groundwork for real interpersonal knowledge.
All right, so now we're ready to get formal. What are the absolute minimum criteria for this grade 3 encounter to count as genuine I knowledge? The sources propose 2 big ones. The encounter condition and the symmetry condition.
That's right. The encounter condition is what defines the necessary meeting of minds, and it breaks down into 3 simple clauses. For a subject S to know a respondent, R personally. First, IS must have had reciprocal causal contact with R.
Meaning there has to be a real exchange, not just 2 people thinking about each other.
Correct. Second, 2, S must treat R second personally. And third, 3, R must treat S second personally.
So clauses 2 and 3 are about the quality of that contact. Let's dig into that idea of second personal treatment. What does that really mean in practice? It has to be more than just talking at someone.
Oh, much more. It requires a kind of intentional vulnerability. For you to treat me second personally, you have to offer up some piece of your own subjective life, a thought, an emotion, a question, and critically, you have to intend to be attentive to my response.
It's an active reciprocal loop, not passive observation.
Precisely, and once you define it that way, you can immediately rule out a bunch of scenarios where people might think they know someone.
Like the classic stalker or spy example.
Exactly. The spy might have maximum grade 2 knowledge. He might know more facts about his target's daily routine than the target knows about herself. But he fails clauses 2 and 3 completely. There is no second personal treatment. It's all one way.
Right. And the biographer fails clause 1. She can't have reciprocal causal contact with a subject who is deceased.
And we had that great example of Maud and Jim, the letter writers. They both write these heartfelt second personal letters at the same time. But the mail service fails, and neither letter is delivered.
So they fulfill the intention in clauses 2 and 3?
But they fail the causal contact requirement in clause 1. The circuit was never completed. The knowledge relationship was never actually established.
What's so interesting about this for our modern world is that physical presence isn't required.
Not at all, and this is key. If Maud and Jim had a genuinely reciprocal synchronous video chat, the encounter condition would be fully satisfied. The meeting is of minds, not necessarily of bodies.
Okay, so once that encounter has happened and the relationship is established, we hit what might be the most radical and, frankly, weird constraint on eye knowledge. Symmetry.
It is a strange one, but it's what truly separates eye knowledge from everything else. The symmetry condition is simple to state. S knows R personally, only if R also knows S personally.
So if one person loses the knowledge, both do.
It's a shared achievement, so it's loss for both.
But wait, why? Why does that have to be true? Why can't I keep my knowledge of you even if you, say, get amnesia and forget who I am? I still remember everything we did, all the facts I learned about you.
This is a really challenging point. Because you are right. You, Sam, would retain all of your propositional knowledge about R. All the facts are still in your head, and they're still true.
So why is my knowledge invalidated just because of a failure in R's brain?
Because eye knowledge isn't defined by the collection of facts in your head. It's defined by the existence of the reciprocal relationship itself. The moment R loses all memory of you, she loses the ability to reciprocate your second personal stance. She can no longer recognize the you that you're directing at her, and at that moment, the two-way structure that defines eye knowledge collapses.
So I'm left holding a bunch of facts and memories, but the actual knowing relationship is gone.
It's gone, and the death case makes this even clearer. When R dies, the other mind required for the relationship vanishes. We instinctively shift our language. We say, I knew her well, past tense. We're signaling that the I knowledge has ceased, even while our P knowledge about her remains present tense. I know that she loved cats.
So the symmetry condition is a kind of reality check, affectivity condition. There has to be an actual engaged mind on the other end of the line for the connection to be live.
You could call it a quasi-factivity, yes. And this strict structural definition leads us to a fascinating test case. The problem of deception. The con man.
Right. This is where the rubber really meets the road for the irreducibility claim.
Okay, let's lay it out. Conrad is a brilliant con man. He meets Beatrice. For months, they have what seem to be genuinely reciprocal second personal interactions. He shares his thoughts, she shares hers. They satisfy all 3 clauses of the encounter condition.
But everything he tells her about himself is a lie. His name, his job, his past. So Beatrice forms a whole network of beliefs about him that are completely false.
So the question is, does Beatrice actually know Conrad personally? The gut reaction is to say, no, of course not. She's been duped.
Right. She doesn't really know him.
But if we stick to our strict criteria, the answer is yes, she does.
How can that be?
Because Conrad is the actual person, the referent, the subject she's had a reciprocal encounter with. The relationship, however flawed, exists between them. She has successfully satisfied all the conditions for eye knowledge with the man standing in front of her.
So her knowledge of who he is, the specific person she's been interacting with, that knowledge holds, even if her knowledge that he is an honest banker is totally false.
Yes. And this is a profound insight. It shows that you can have successful eye knowledge even when the corresponding P knowledge is a complete disaster. The relationship between the two subjects can be established even on a foundation of lies.
That really does prove they're independent. And if Conrad were to suddenly get amnesia, Beatrice's eye knowledge would vanish instantly, even though she'd still retain all those false propositions about him.
The two types of knowledge are structurally separate. And this structural difference isn't just some, academic curiosity. It has huge, real-world consequences for how we treat each other and how we justify what we believe.
Let's start with the ethical side. We all feel that we have stronger moral obligations to people we know personally. Where does that feeling come from?
Well, if I knowledge requires that grade 3, two-way second personal engagement, then the relationship itself might be the very source of those heightened obligations. When you treat someone as a you who gives you their thoughts, not just an it's you observe, you're already in an ethical relationship with them.
So it's not just, I should help people in need. It becomes, I have a special reason to help you because of our connection.
Exactly. It's what gives moral weight to our relationships with friends and family. This isn't just a feeling. It's a structural feature of the knowledge itself. And there's empirical evidence for this.
Really?
Yes. Studies show that when people have even minimal grade 3 involvement, we're talking just making eye contact and having a brief reciprocal exchange, they behave in measurably more civil and moral ways toward that person compared to just seeing them or reading their name.
So eye knowledge isn't just a nice philosophical idea, it's a social glue. It actively makes us better.
It seems to. Now let's turn to the really big epistemic challenge. The idea that eye knowledge can act as its own form of justification for a belief, operating outside the normal rules of evidence.
This sounds like it would make some philosophers very uncomfortable. It goes against the idea of evidentialism, right?
Yeah.
The idea that your beliefs should only be based on the hard evidence you have.
Deeply uncomfortable. It does challenge that. Let's use the case of Tom's commitment to see how it works.
Okay.
So you have two people, Jill and Sam. They both have the exact same body of propositional evidence about Tom. They know his perfect track record, his skills, his past successes, all the facts. P20 to $1080 say Tom is reliable. Tom promises them both he'll deliver a project by Tuesday.
And Tuesday comes and goes. No project.
No project. Now, Sam only knows Tom through his resume and his reputation. Grade 1 and 2 knowledge. For her, the rational thing to do is to lower her confidence in Tom. The evidence has changed. He's less reliable than she thought.
Makes sense. But Jill knows Tom personally. They're old friends. They've been through a lot together. She has grade 3 knowledge.
Exactly. And because of that, Jill is rationally justified in maintaining her belief that Tom will come through. She can hold on to that belief for much longer and with higher confidence than Sam can.
But wait, if their propositional evidence is identical, how is Jill being rational? Isn't she just being sentimental or biased in favor of her friend?
That's the key question. She's not being irrational because she has access to a completely different epistemic resource. Her eye knowledge of Tom. That deep, reciprocal understanding of his character gained over years of encounters acts as an autonomous justifier. It's like a separate stream of evidence.
So it allows her to interpret the new negative evidence, the missed deadline, differently.
Yes. She can rationally say, I see the evidence that he failed, but because I know Tom, I am justified in believing there's an unknown factor and he will still deliver. Her personal knowledge gives her a kind of epistemic stability that Sam doesn't have.
This sheds a whole new light on the idea of being loyal to a friend. It's not just about emotion. It can be an epistemically sound position to take.
It grounds the idea of epistemic partiality in friendship. Your personal connection literally improves your epistemic standing regarding that person's character and intentions. We see this in other places too, like in court. A court will always prefer an eyewitness who has firsthand perceptual knowledge, or a character witness who has firsthand interpersonal knowledge, over someone who just read a report with all the same facts. We instinctively value the mode of learning, not just the content learned.
And this has even wider applications, right? What about things like testimony and even religious epistemology?
Absolutely. When it comes to testimony, we usually focus on the content of what's said. But eye knowledge is often the silent gatekeeper. Your personal relationship with the person giving the testimony is critical.
So if I know you personally to be an honest, careful person, I am more justified in believing your wild story than if I heard it from a stranger.
Precisely. Your eye knowledge sanctions their reliability. But it works the other way too, and this is crucial. If you know someone personally to be a consistent liar, you might be epistemically obligated to distrust their testimony, even if they present what looks like a mountain of evidence.
So your relational knowledge can override the propositional evidence. It's about who is speaking, not just what they're saying.
Exactly. And you can see how this mechanism applies powerfully in religious epistemology. If a believer claims to have eye knowledge of God, to know God as a personal subject through a grade 3 encounter, that relationship can function as an autonomous justifier.
So when they're faced with evidence against God's existence, like the problem of evil or divine hiddenness.
That I knowledge can provide a rational basis for a kind of steadfastness, a reason to maintain faith in the face of conflicting propositional data. Their justification comes from whom they know, not just what they know.
And finally, let's circle back to something we touched on at the beginning. The dynamic nature of all this, its gradability and context sensitivity.
Right. The very fact that we can say John knows Sue better than Rachel does is so telling. You can't say John knows that Paris is the capital of France better than Rachel does. B knowledge isn't really gradable that way.
So the gradability of I knowledge shows it's not a one-time thing. It's a developmental process.
It's an achievement built up over time through the depth and breadth of these shared grade 3 encounters. And that links directly to context. The bar is set differently in different situations.
Meeting a celebrity for a 5-minute reciprocal chat yesterday might be enough for you to say, in that context, I know them personally. It meets the minimum encounter condition.
But for a close friend, that bar is set astronomically higher. It requires years of shared history and vulnerability.
And that developmental path is what gives our relationships their texture. I knowledge is the engine that moves us from being strangers to acquaintances to friends to intimates. It's not a static concept. It's the living fabric of our social lives.
It deepens and expands, not just by adding more facts, but by adding more complexity and history to those reciprocal second personal engagements.
So we've been on quite a journey today. We've moved epistemology out of the classroom, away from its traditional focus on just facts and logic. We've tried to define this other crucial thing, interpersonal knowledge.
That reciprocal two-way relationship between people. And we've seen, through some pretty tough linguistic and logical tests, that it really is structurally different. You can't reduce it to a list of facts. Its essence is in that two-way encounter and the necessary symmetry that requires both minds to stay engaged.
And understanding that difference really changes how you think about trust and belief and even morality. When you feel justified in trusting a friend against the odds, or you feel that stronger ethical pull towards someone close to you, that's I knowledge in action. It's working as its own kind of reason.
And that brings us right back to you listening to this. It brings us to the present day. If this reciprocal grade 3 knowledge is so fundamental to our ethical and our epistemic lives, what does it mean that we increasingly live in a world dominated by grades 1 and 2?
That's a heavy question. We're just drenched in information about other people, social media feeds, news articles, data profiles. We have more P knowledge and one-way perceptual knowledge at our fingertips than ever before.
But so many of these platforms, by their very design, seem to resist the core requirements of I knowledge. They encourage observation and broadcasting, not necessarily genuine, reciprocal, second personal exchange.
So the provocative thought we want to leave you with is this. If our default ways of interacting are shifting more and more towards observing people from a distance rather than truly engaging with them, are we creating a kind of epistemic deficit? Are we weakening our own ability to trust, to understand, and to connect ethically?
Perhaps the real challenge for us now is to be more intentional, to actively choose to deprioritize the easy, endless stream of facts about others, and instead to commit to the much harder but far more rewarding work of seeking out authentic, reciprocal grade 3 encounters in our own lives. Because in the end, the quality of your knowledge, and maybe the quality of your life, depends not just on what you know, but on whom you know.